The button.
The baton.
Yes, the button,
Baton. We're
which
gonna pass the baton.
it's that time of year to dust off the ugly Christmas sweater. And for one final Thursday night of 2022, we figured let's do a Christmas episode for the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. I'm your host tonight. I'm Grant Tommy. I'm a straight Six Fan here on YouTube. This feller over this direction.
No, it's actually the other direction. But anyways, it's me, Jason, old car guy, and I am the car guy of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. We're happy to be back here for one final time here in 2022. It was a great season. It was a great year, actually, Grant, and we had a lot of fun, not just here on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, but on YouTube in general. We got to hang out for a little bit there back in October, finally meet, and we're happy to see some people in the chat rolling through here to help us celebrate Christmas a little bit a week early. And Grant, why don't you kind of jump over there, see who's joining us for the live show?
Yeah, for sure. So we're waiting for people to still stumble in with their eggnog in hand. But Hobbins Hot Rods, Will's Wheels, and Andy, our buddy Andy over at Turlo's Garage for sure, are there in the chat. Which means there's a few others, or maybe not anymore, because I just saw that number go down. Yeah, that little surprise. But Gary Boyd has dropped in as well. So welcome everybody. Going to be plenty of time to ask questions for Jason or myself here tonight. So we're going to make this as interactive as possible. So by all means, interrupt us, let us throw us off our game, and do whatever you want really tonight.
Yeah, so as you guys know, the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, we've been doing this for we're pretty much tidying up 4 years of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. Started off with a hope and a dream for both of us to try to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we did that with the help of some of our viewers, and some of those viewers are actually still here tonight. The idea of helping other channels reach that same goal, when you're small channels, every subscriber counts, and we certainly appreciate everybody who has taken part in the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, who have gone over and watched and viewed videos on my channel as well as here on Grant's. The interaction is really what makes all of this the fun part. Is kind of mixing and mingling with everybody. Does Santa come to your house in Canada before? Well, yeah, he lives in. I mean, anyway. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we've had a successful 8 seasons. We had lots of fun, lots of guests. We will be reflecting on this a little bit later on in the show. Grant, any opening remarks that you might have for anybody that's jumping in here and joining us tonight?
Yeah, no, I mean, you summed it up well, and I was going to say, as long as we're talking about reflections, I think I kind of actually wanted to start there, but not necessarily on all 8 seasons necessarily. But this time of year, it's always fun to take a look back at what the year was for each of us in our YouTube channels, our YouTube journeys, and I think this is probably one of the most drastic contrasts in years, probably since we've been doing this. It was probably one of my, I don't know, I'm not gonna say least successful years, but I guess Jason, instead of me bringing it down right out of the gate, I'm just kind of curious, how do you encapsulate, or how do you think back on the year that was 2022 for you and your YouTube journey?
Well, I think it all started off, with the unknowing. We were still kind of dealing with the pandemic, trying to commit to travel and different types of things like that. For me in Canada, not being able to head to the US until the borders open, I had plenty of plans to want to do that. And as the time went on, I think it was June is when the borders actually opened up for us to be able to kind of travel back and forth between Canada and the US. And Chris, do I have a heater in the garage? Kinda. I've got a little one underneath my desk pointed at my knees here right now. That's all I got till Tuesday next week. Once the borders opened up for us to be able to travel into the US, it was great because we got to see some family again. We got to be able to go back and forth quite freely with, I'm not going to get into that. And the fact that, I was able to make it to SEMA this year. The fact that Grant was able to make it into Canada and come for a quick visit here, like the actual YouTube journey slowed way down. See, when the new year hit last year, I started off or ended 2021 with a live stream trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers. And I did that with, I just sat there for a couple of hours, had a few beers, just enjoying some time. Lots of guys were in and out. And a buddy of mine from down in Texas jumped on, tried to share, get some people to jump in and subscribe. We made it to 10,000. And then over the course of the next several weeks, we actually jumped up into like 12,500 subscribers. So it's been a slow journey from January till now, from that 12,500 subscribers to my 15.7 now. So if you look at that gain over the course of the whole year, quite minimal compared to what happened in 2021. But nevertheless, I can't complain. We have grown. I've had some very successful videos that have popped up. Most recently, the ones on the Townie Soprano, the black 97 Lincoln Town Car. Those videos generally have been doing quite well, including the most recent one where we did all the paint correction. And man, I can't get over that. I'm really excited about that. And there's lots of changes. There's I've made a couple of connections with some big, and I mean big names, who reached out to me. Usually when you're looking for sponsorship, you're the one reaching out. But somebody reached out to me, and it's going to be a pretty amazing 2022. So I'm looking forward to that. We're getting ready to get the Yugo and the Echo into the shop here and start working on that in the new year. Once I get some heat, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So I'm really looking forward to doing that project and seeing what kind of corner we can turn in 2022 with viewership and subscriber base. And if it doesn't change much at all, you know what? I'll be okay with that because I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. Grant, what do you think of your 2021 and how things kind of went as far as growth and success for your channel?
Yeah, well, it's funny because some of the things you said in there actually gave me hope. Because looking back at the, of course, this time of year, YouTube sends out their kind of their own little promo thing that has all your stats in it for year in review kind of thing, which I think was last week that email came out or whatever. And I was a bit surprised. It said I'd had gained over 500 subscribers, but I swear on New Year's Day, because I kind of always, my goal is always just like, well, let's just double subscribers from 1 year, because I've always viewed YouTube as an exponential growth model, right? So like the more subscribers you had, kind of feeds off itself. And I was at 3,300 subscribers last year, and I'm at like 30, barely under. I might be at 3,800 now, but it's like, that was really disappointing. But it said January was my best month, and so that coincides with exactly what you said. And I truly do think something did change in YouTube's algorithm since then, that I stopped, as my life got busier, I stopped.
It's the beers, Mexico Spet. Sorry, I'm getting my years confused. He's questioning whether we were talking about 2021 or 22. It is 2022 is what we're talking about. We're just kind of year in review. Sorry.
Yeah. So now, and I also had like the perfect storm in 2022 of like, I'd switched jobs halfway through 2021, and just the responsibilities of kind of helping grow a baby department at a bigger company. And that just kind of kicked my hind parts. I had sold the Fairmont in February, and so a lot of my content, I was trying to figure out what was the stopgap content for me, and I couldn't be. It was my least consistent year. So, like, all that said, I'm still tracking for this to financially be my second best year, which gives me hope for like any year that I probably couldn't have tried less for it to be the second best financial year. Like, there's still something really nice about that. Now, granted, not making life-changing money on the YouTube things, but I don't know, that that's kind of the thing that I look back. That's the success story, I guess, is the monetary side of things. But otherwise, you know, I buy this 1979 Grand Prix and thinking, and G bodies were pretty hot this year. But I'm telling you, like my Fairmont content by the end was outpacing this stuff like probably 2 to 1. Like it's
Yeah.
hard for me to get even 200 views on a new video. Now, granted, I know I move at a snail's pace. I know it's all been interior rehab content, and at some point you've seen so much. But like, I just thought G body was going to be pretty searchable, and I really, really am disappointed in that. I guess.
Well, I think there's something to be said for that, because 3 years ago when I bought Dale the truck, that was my sales pitch to my wife to spend that money to buy it, was that, listen, square bodies are big, and they're not just big, they're freaking huge. There's a huge market, there's a huge following, and everything that you do. So right now I've got a lot of those videos that I did from 3 years ago that are just now starting to ramp up as far as viewership. They're becoming searchable, but at the time, like you said, they were 200-300 views when you first let them out over the first week or so. And I think that to some degree, as I guess we can call ourselves veteran YouTubers now, but I mean, to some degree, we're still fairly young at it because we have not snagged and tamed that algorithm. So once we figure out in our own minds what that algorithm looks like and what works for us, I don't think it necessarily is the searchability of a specific vehicle. I think it's the actual content that we're creating and how we're creating and how we're appealing or appeasing to the viewers. And when the viewers pick up on what it is we're doing, whatever that might be, whether it's G body, square body, Panther platform, Fox body, whatever it happens to be, when the viewers pick up on it, the algorithm picks up on them picking up on it and starts pushing. And I've seen that in a couple of my videos recently, where it just all of a sudden you're like, why is this video doing so well? And then the next 3 or 4 after it tank.
Well, and that's to piggyback on that, I guess, again, the YouTube email shows me what the most popular video was of the year, and it was actually a video from January of 2021, which, it went that first year, it kind of went unnoticed, but then it did exactly what you were talking about. And it was basically just me and my buddy. Every now and then we go hit back roads with our 4x4s, and it just so happened he had a brand new set of BFGs, all terrains on his Toyota 4Runner, and I had the General Grabber ATs on my. So I titled the video like it was a versus, a true test, this tire versus this tire, and there was a lot about that video that it's content I don't like to make. Like, it was just way too long, but people grabbed onto it a year later, and it's one of the most people truly want to know when they're shopping for tires. Which one should I buy? Should I buy the Grabber or the BFG? And you look at the analytics, and they scrub it to find where I actually talk about out of the 19 minutes where I actually talk about here are my impressions of my tire versus his tire. And that's kind of exactly what you said, Jason.
Yeah, and like I said, as in our minds, we think we know how to attack it, but as soon as that camera hits record and our mouth starts opening, it's like blah, 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 and we just can't put it together. And I look at some of the big names in automotive YouTube right now, Vice Grip Garage and Legit Street Cars and some of these guys who they just, every video they put out, Legit Street Cars, I just watched it earlier, put out a video 21 hours ago, and it had 250,000 views. And I'm thinking, man, if I had 2,000 views in 21 hours, I'd be screaming to the top of my lungs at how successful this video was. But I get it that they've got, hundreds of thousands and millions of viewers to accommodate that. And the percentage of people who are subscribed will watch every single video. But I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, by no means, because I really I'm still having fun with the YouTube. I'm still having fun with the vehicles that I'm working on. And I'm still having fun putting the content out and the editing. Like I enjoy sitting there editing. So to finally kind of decide when am I going to actually sit down and start. I don't want to say script because that's such a taboo word. I believe in the YouTube world, but plan out how your video is going to come together, I think is more how I should put that. That says, okay, if I want to have a hook in the end that draws them in, or in the beginning, I want that draws them in to find out what I'm doing. But I also want to keep them intrigued for longer than 30 seconds until they click off to some other video that somebody else is putting off. So if I can get them hooked, which I do, if my analytics tell me that most people watch the first minute of what I'm doing, but for some reason they're clicking off. Is it because I'm so handsome, or is it because I'm boring? I'm guessing it's because I'm boring. So I got to figure out what makes what makes me so unboring. I guess I'm not sure if I'm saying how that is, I guess, properly, but
So I've got a question for you, Jason, but before I lob that your way, I did want to give Gary a chance to add a little more context to this question. He's asking, if you're not restoring a vehicle, do you have to be a flipper to do this? So I'm not exactly, it feels like I need just a hair more information here, but I think it's an interesting question potentially. But Jason, I'm curious to get your take on, like, I wonder if, so much of my brand equity was the Fairmont, right? I spent 3 years of content building a Fox body, a Ford, a Fox body, and then I switch over to a G body, and my whole shtick is it's about these OPEC era cars, the ones that nobody wants, and I'm not like a brand, like, yes, I'm a Ford guy at heart, but I guess what I'm saying is I wonder if I, without really knowing it, did I build a following that was a lot more of the Ford guys? So then now that when I'm doing this G body stuff, have a bunch of them maybe left, and maybe is that, I'm just kind of curious what your third person point of view is on something like that.
I think if I knew, I think I would be sharing that, and I think we'd all be successful. I even think even the most successful YouTubers don't 100% understand what it takes or what the algorithm is, because I truly believe the algorithm changes by genre, by type of videos that you're putting out. I mean, like not just automotive, but maybe you're an adventure guy, you're an outdoors guy, you're a fishing, hunting, racing. Maybe you're just a podcasting, or you're a historian, whatever that happens to be. I think the algorithm changes based on the information that you're putting forward. Because if someone's telling a story with great graphics and great, text,
Cinematography and
just that sort of thing, you're more apt to stay intrigued and watch longer. So there, the view duration's there. And if the algorithm picks up on view duration, it's going to say, okay, well, people are watching this. Why? Well, they're staying on. Let's push it out more. Let's make sure more people see it. And I think that, when you're doing stuff like what we're doing, we're just not hitting that, keeping people intrigued long enough with fancy graphics or fancy cinematography or fun upbeat music or whatever it happens to be, right? And I just think that sometimes we put a video together for the sake of making a deadline and putting a video out there, rather than saying, okay, you know what, if I'm only going to post once a week or once a month or whatever it happens to be, I can afford to put a little more time and effort into my editing and adding a few more of this or a few more of that. And I really think that we've got to focus a little bit more on, like I said, I think I highlighted it there for a second when Dudes with Wrenches had said something about scripting, and planning is everything we all hate. I agree. I hate to do that, but you got to do it to produce good content. And he's a perfect example of that, because here he is doing, fantastic short form content and growing his channel to, oh shit, last time I looked, I think it was over 60,000 subscribers. I don't know what he is at now. So like, it's working for him, and we've got to transform what that algorithm looks like from short form content to long, to keep people in there, keep them interested.
Jason Rosh had asked, when are you starting the Yugo swap?
Yeah, so as it sits right now, the technician's coming on Tuesday to hook up the propane heater. So all of that stuff will be done hopefully Tuesday, of weather permitting. Hopefully everything goes good. Once I have a dedicated source of heat out here that's not carbon monoxide related, like the diesel salamander that I've been running lately, you can't work out here with that thing running for very long. It just gets too noxious and headaches and this and that. And I think I've killed a few brain cells, and that wasn't from the beer either. So once we get the heat in here, I'm thinking between Christmas and New Year's, we're shutting the shop down. And that'll be when I kind of bring things in, start putting a plan together, plan of action to start to getting some measurements. As I mentioned, I've got a big partnership coming up with a big name brand that's reached out to me and said that they want to try and work with me, and I'm hoping that that will help with this project on the Yugo, and put me kind of front and center. I hope a little bit more than what I am right now. I think that project is going to be great content. There's been a lot of people showing great interest in that when I do the shorts or TikToks or reels or whatever. Those videos get tons of views. Not really sure why, but they do. So I'm excited to kind of get diving into that project. I do have a plan and I do have a goal that I want to be able to take this car and drive it the 150 miles to the Atlantic Nationals in July. So I'm on a deadline. I've got basically from the new year till the first weekend in July to get that done.
Well, I think if I'm piecing everything together correctly, I think Gary Mathis's earlier question about do you have to be if you're not restoring, do you have to be a flipper? I think he was talking about that through the lens of these people who do the will it start videos. Like he was kind of trying to ask if you're restoring a car, like it seems to be people want to it's the instant gratification world we live in, which is sort of what Dudes with Wrenches is saying. Like shows like Gas Monkey Garage created this, it's 2 weeks, or like Steve Darnell, basically all of his builds on Vegas Rat Rods. I don't know if he told you this on the tour, Jason, but like they were basically 2-week builds, and Discovery wants to shoot a full season, and so they're like back to back these intense work weeks of back to back to back to back, get like 8 episodes for a full season, and then they take 6 to 8 months to edit everything. And so they're editing 2 weeks worth of work with 8 hands, like 8 different people work on these vehicles, and they're condensing it down to 44 minutes when you take out commercials for an hour-long show. And so like we got spoiled because that is good entertainment. You get to see a lot happen in 44 minutes. It's just not realistic or physically possible for the one-man show, production crew, editing crew, everything we are when we're doing our builds.
Yeah, and kind of back that up too is you talk about instant gratification, and that's what a will it start video is. And most of the time when you choose a will it start video to watch, it's not a 13 to 18-minute video. It's usually it's an hour or more long because there's a lot that they do. And these guys like to show you the details of what they went through for a couple of reasons. One, because they want to show you the struggles that it takes to get an old vehicle running. But two, they want to try and curb some of those haters in the comments that say, oh, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Well, I did it, but I just didn't show it on camera. So they show a lot of things. And the will it start videos are big. They're huge. People want to see what it takes to go from something sitting in a field for 30 years to running and driving or whatever it happens to be. That is 100% the success of Vice Grip Garage, Roadkill, of Junkyard Digs, who was one of the early pioneers on YouTube of Will It Starts, as well as several others. And I enjoy watching them, but I often catch myself clicking through the video to get to certain points. I don't want to sit and watch an hour and a half long video of all the trials and errors. Some people do, which is fine, but that was their success. So when it comes to that, that's a big one right now in the automotive niche is fly somewhere to buy a car that hasn't been running and driving forever. and drive it home X 100 miles away or whatever it happens to be. That seems to be the big thing in the automotive content world right now that people are doing. Seems to be successful, seems to be getting the views. That's why everyone wants to do it.
Which is exactly what Roadkill episode 1 was.
Yeah.
Right? Fly to El Paso, buy whatever we can find, drive it to LA.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many years ago that was that episode 1 came out, but Dan had earlier commented, and this is a thing we talk about every now and then, is how much it would be. Oh, and holy cow, I just missed. So Andy gave a nice super chat. So Andy from Turlo's Garage, thanks for the super chat. I'll scroll down and see if I can't find it. But we talk often about how much nicer it'd be to have at least someone holding the camera for you. And what could our channels be if it was a 2-man show? And when I say 2-man show, I mean even like the Nick's Garage, George and Nick's Garage dynamic. Yep. But I think there's something to that.
There definitely is. I think it would be great. And we've talked about this over and over and over again in past shows, and even in back and forth conversations with each other, is having somebody else as part of what you do, even if that person's never on camera. Sometimes it's about, they can control the camera, they can control the stop start, they can control the zoom, they can control whatever as far as the audio, the visual. You can just do the work. And sometimes it's having that person as an extra hand when you need it, or having that person as somebody to throw a joke off of once in a while, that kind of lightens the atmosphere sometimes, and to shoot things back and forth with. Definitely having that second person is great. And sometimes, if you're doing YouTube as your career, you can certainly say, okay, well, 8:00, time to go to work, because we've got to get this much recording done today so we can get a video out for tomorrow or whatever. For those of us who are just doing it in our spare time, well, find the spare time, not just to do the work you need to do, but double that, because you've got to control your camera and operate the angles and make sure you're getting the views and explaining everything. And then you got to get back to work. Then you got to edit it and all this stuff. So one-man show works great for a long time. It's what builds your YouTube character, so to speak. And that's what makes or breaks a lot of guys. And for some of us who do it, my 5-year anniversary is coming up here on YouTube here pretty quick, which is really outrageous to me. And Grant's got a couple years on me as far as the actual YouTube experience. So we haven't made it big yet, folks. We don't have that camera guy and editor that we can pay out of our pocket, although someday it'd be nice to get there.
So Mexican Spec had asked, and I think I understand the question he's asking here. Do you guys look through the camera when you're recording? And I would say for myself, no. I look at the camera.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I've got an iPhone 12. I don't know if you guys can see it there, but right on the bottom corner here, there's a flash. And I don't usually use the flash, but I use that kind of as my guide, as it's a white dot. But that's where I look when I'm looking at the back of my camera. Sometimes I'm using the front of it, and I can actually see myself to make sure that I'm actually in the shot. But I don't, when I'm recording myself, I use the front camera 90% of the time. And if otherwise I'm using the back. But I look at the camera. I don't necessarily look through it to see what I'm doing, unless I'm trying to get that lineup shot or a zoom in shot that say, okay, I got to use the screen to find it. But
in the way I took his question, when he says look through the camera, I think he's meaning like to pick, like, do you envision like a person on the other side of the camera, like look, instead of looking at the camera, look through it, like. And I can't converse with an imaginary like character. So that's basically where I'm at. Like, it's really hard for my sense of humor to be what it is without another real person.
And I can, though. I guess that's probably a difference between the two of us, is because I can look through that. I can look at that white dot as if it's somebody. And I can talk to the camera like the camera is somebody, like I'm talking to you guys as you're watching. And, I think I don't know. I don't know if maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's the better approach.
Either way, it's what I've been doing. It's what I'm comfortable with. And, I've tried to change my ways and do different, and I can't. I'm constantly go back to doing it the way I started when I first started. I mean, I'm more, what's the word, in tune, or I'm more comfortable in front of the camera now than I was 5 years ago, for sure. A little less, weird and awkward and this and that. And anyways, maybe I'm not, I don't know.
So Mexican Spec clarified that he was. So I did misinterpret his question, but he says, "Do you look through the screen while you do the recording?" So, like for me, I do use a DSLR, and I do my vision finder is not the little hole that you put your eye behind. I do use the LCD screen to look at, and it has a flip around screen, so I use that to make sure I'm in the shot when I shoot, the instructional part when I'm the guy talking to the camera. But
and King Eric says, where'd it go? King Eric says, do I use a handy cam? Well, I've upgraded from the handy cam because I used to carry the one on the shoulder, the VHS, the full VHS tape, and I mean I got rid of that, so I've bumped up to beta. I'm using the beta tapes now.
So this is, I want to pick on Dudes with Wrenches here. He says, I think the best tips is just be yourself and be the same guy off camera as on camera. And I would say that I would be just as dull talking to nobody in my garage without a camera as I am talking to nobody in the garage with a camera. So I do think I'm the same guy, like I know that's not what he means, but that's like think about it. If you don't have a camera there, and you're out in the garage, you're going to look like a doofus talking to yourself, trying to make yourself laugh. Like, that's not like a skill that everybody has.
Well, I think that's the biggest key when it comes to recording and putting yourself out there, putting yourself in other people's view, is that if I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, it will catch up. Like I hope that when someone comes to my business to try and buy a car from me, or wants to come hang out in the garage and have a beer with me, I hope that I'm that same guy in both instances, as I am with you guys here, on screen or behind the camera or whatever. What you see is what you get. I'm not trying to fake anything. I do keep my language clean on camera for a reason. I may not if I'm in person with you, but the idea is that if I keep my language clean, it hopefully makes me more promotable or more easily accessible to more people, more family friendly. More people will want to watch what I have because it's clean, and I don't curse and swear and have all that stuff. So.
Well, I wanted to change it up just a little bit and throw just kind of a fun topic out there that, so being the car guy at SIXFAN show, we are car guys and fans of six-cylinder builds around these parts, but I got flamed for that earlier today. But Jason, I guess if you had to pick your Santa sleigh to deliver presents in, I'm gonna ask you what would that be, but the only rule is like it has to be a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and obviously it's gonna be painted red. So what's your version of Santa Sleigh 2022?
Well, I want to answer with two vehicles, and only because we talked backstage before we did this, and the first thing that came to my mind was Dale the truck, but you say it's got to be red. So then I said, well, you know what? If it's going to be red, I think a red 70 Chevelle wagon really would be a fun car to drive for starters. But it would hold a lot of toys and gifts for the girls and boys and all that stuff. So I think a 70 Chevelle is my locked in answer. But my answer for providing proper content for my channel would definitely have to be a Panther platform of some sort. So if we go back to like an 85 LTD Squire wagon, with the wood grain stickers on the side, the family truckster almost. I'm thinking that I think we could make it work with the Griswold family truckster. How about you, Grant?
Yeah, and so I put zero more thought into it since lobbing it to you backstage. But yeah, I think wagon is kind of the given. And I was thinking actually again country squire wagon, but the earlier generation this is where Jeff Ford needs to be correcting me because I can never keep straight. I love the stacked headlight look. Fairlane Galaxy body style like 66, 67, and that's for a long time been like a dream of mine is having the wagon version of that car. Bagged, of course, it'd have to be airbagged if it's me. But yeah, throw a Christmas tree on top, do some burnouts, and deliver some presents.
Way you go, ho ho ho! So if you guys are here, obviously, why don't you throw in the chat what your favorite? I see Will's Wheels has got a Ferrari F12. I don't think that's much of a gift carrying wagon, but nevertheless, put your sleigh, your Christmas sleigh, what it is that you guys would be delivering gifts with in the chat there. Your classic vehicle, maybe it's modern, maybe it is something a little more modern. We'll get out there with Uncle Eddie's RV and classic National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Shitter's full. But yeah, a Buick Roadmaster, Will says. I'd be on board with a Buick Roadmaster.
Oh yeah, I like the Fox body LTDs are pretty cool. I would definitely.
Oh, the minis, the mini LTDs.
Yeah.
And of course, King Eric the Great, the greatest of all, says a 67 to 70 Mercury Cougar. Everything. That's his answer for everything. 67 to 70 Mercury Cougar. Mexican Spec says a 58 Edsel Roundup wagon. I could be on board with that. That's weird, unique, and ugly enough that I can be on board with that. That sure meets the ticket.
Did you ever see did Detroit Steel make its way up there in Canada? Detroit Steel Wheels is a TV show.
No.
Okay.
I don't have TV. I wouldn't know if it did or not.
There was a build they had, which was Mercury. It was a Mercury. That's what it was. Turnpike Cruiser. And it was like a 58 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser. Had never heard of the car in my life before, but when you said Edsel, that it made me think of that, and it was a pretty cool. Another vehicle they always did were the 67 Lincoln Continentals. They did a lot of those. That'd be a pretty cool Santa sleigh with the suicide doors.
Yep.
In red.
For sure. And I've been on this kick of U.S. presidents lately. For some reason, I got on to finding out kind of the story and their presidencies of different presidents. And I just went through and I watched that. I think it's on Netflix, called Tricky Dicky, of Richard Nixon and kind of how he came into his presidency, how he ran twice, 10 years apart, and the whole Watergate scandal and what that was all about. And watching some of these videos and using the real footage of the day just brings back so many, memories of my childhood, seeing some of these old, well, back then they would have been new, 70s cars rolling through downtown, whatever cities they were. And I love watching old file footage or old movies using the older vehicles. And I think that as we the older we get, and we think, 30 years ago was 1970. Well, guess what, guys? It wasn't. We're pushing on, 50 years ago now for some of us, growing up with all these cars that we're seeing in these TV shows. So I guess one question I guess we can kind of lob out there, I'll lob it to you, Grant, but we'll ask the chat as well, is, we talk about car movies. What are some of your favorite car movies that you have out there for some of these, classic vehicles? And I know that we're going to get, a lot of great movies and this and that. But Grant, what's one of your favorite movie cars or movies with cars in it from maybe your childhood or recently or what have you?
Well, I want to dodge the question for a second.
Okay.
Just because, since the Car Guy and Six Fan Show is powered by the Get Out and Drive podcast, when you were talking about seeing all of those cars in the original footage, it reminded me of a guest you guys had on who was the person who's basically like casting old cars to be era specific to like the movie they're shooting. And so I just thought that was a really entertaining podcast. Since we're doing like year in reflection, so while I still think how to answer your question, Jason, I want to lob a question back your way.
Sure. Yeah.
And talk a little bit, like, kind of reflect on the year, like your experience with the Get Out and Drive podcast, and maybe even talk about that episode a little bit.
Yeah, so that fellow's name was Norman Altizer, and Norman runs a picture car studio type of deal where he'll find the era specific cars for certain movies. Now, if we go back, one of the movies he talked about on the podcast was A League of Their Own. So that was, Rosie O'Donnell and some of those girls that went and played baseball in the day, way back in like the 20s and 30s. And so he had to go find vehicle specific or era specific vehicles for that movie. And, some of those shows were taking place in like downtown in a great big city like New York. And so now you're having to go find 30s and 20s and 30s cars to be driving up and down the streets in New York City. So that was Norman's job as a picture car guy. And that was one of the first interviews that I did when I joined the Get Out and Drive podcast back in March of this year. That has been an absolute amazing journey. Being asked to be a part of that. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to get in and do some of the things that we did at SEMA in Las Vegas this year. Getting to interview some big names, seeing some big celebrities. And some of the builds that we got to interview, anyone from racetrack owners to race car drivers, to promoters, engine builders, car builders, people who are into other podcasts. We've interviewed a few of them. Such an amazing opportunity. I'm so blessed to be able to join those guys, Paul and Joanne and John, over at the Get Out and Drive podcast. We've become very close. We're quite a little family over there, and I'm really excited to see what 2023 is going to bring for the Get Out and Drive podcast, because we really have a huge dynamic going. John and I work very well together, just like you and I over here. And I think the idea of seeing what the future holds for the Get Out and Drive podcast, we've got some pretty big names, big companies who are recognizing us now for what it is that we do, and they want to send people our way. They want to invest in the podcast. The biggest one is Racing Junk. I didn't know who Racing Junk was until I joined the Get Out and Drive podcast, but a lot of you guys probably know who they are. And they're basically like a classifieds for racing parts, cars, and junk, anything that you would have. They are our go-to. They support us. They send us guests. They tried to start their very own podcast quite a while ago, and apparently failed miserably, and have kind of adopted the Get Out and Drive podcast as kind of their own. And they're our biggest sponsor. They're our biggest supporter. And if you guys aren't following the Get Out and Drive podcast, I encourage you to do that. They support us over here too, with the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. John and Joanna Paul usually are here with us. They've been very busy because they've got another business, catering, that keeps them going. And this time of year, Christmas parties, you can imagine just how busy they are. So I want to take just a quick second to thank John, Joanna, Paul for inviting me over there, for being a part of the Get Out and Drive podcast and doing what they do over there. They make me feel at home. They make me feel like I'm part of the team. And when we have them over here, we hope that we are offering them the same as they do for me. So thank you guys for making me a part of the Get Out and Drive podcast. I'm really having fun over there.
So thanks for that, because it did spare me a lot of time to think about favorite movie car, and the best I could come up with was so it's going to be a little lame, at least from the franchise standpoint. Fast and the Furious. In fact, because what are they up to, 9? Because I haven't seen all 9 of them. I can tell you
9,
that
they're up to
much.
like 20 now, aren't they?
Yeah. I think I've seen 4. I think I saw 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 4, or maybe it was 5. I don't know. But it's the one where they're in like South America. It's the one that I think all 3 actually. I think this is probably one of the best ones. Of course, again, I haven't seen them all, but there was a Grand National in this one, and then David Freiberger's Camaro F-Bomb made it into this episode, I believe. But there's this green 1972 Ford Torino, the one with I call it the bass fish mouth grill,
Yeah.
right there in the middle, and which I think, whichever one this was, Fast 5 or whatever. I think it came out shortly after, like, Gran Torino came out, and so like there was this tight window of where there were these 2 1972 Ford Gran Torinos, green Ford, that were movie cars, and I don't know why, but I fell in love with that. I was like, nope, that's my version of pro touring, offbeat, hot rodding, be a Ford guy, all bottled up into one. that 1972 bass fish mouth Ford Torino.
Yeah, and I mean, as I don't know, I'm almost embarrassed to say what my favorite movie car movie was, because the car itself really was a dud. I mean, it looked cool. It was underpowered. It was over engineered. But I think the Back to the Future franchise and the DeLorean really kind of kicked it off for me as a kid. 1985, I was 10 years old when those movies came out, 10, 11 years old. And, that DeLorean was like out there. It was psychedelic. It was all those 1980s terms that you would use to describe something really, really cool. And between that and the Dukes of Hazzard, obviously, those are 2 really big key cars in my life that really set the tone for being a car guy. You had your classic Dodge Charger, but then you had this weird thing with gull-wing doors that was stainless steel, and you thought, wow, that thing sounds powerful. It sounds amazing. It'll do 88 miles an hour. But in reality, it was a turd. So I think as we look forward to the new launch of the DeLorean, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. It's a pretty fancy car. It's still a 2-door gull-wing, but it's a 4-seater now instead of just a 2. Lots of great styling cues from the original car. So I'm going with Back to the Future, not just because of the cool car, but because it is my classic go-to favorite movie of all time, movie franchise of all time.
But even taking that a step further, the franchise as a whole, like, there are a lot of cool cars in the Back to the Future models. I'm trying to pull up a new DeLorean concept, but like Biff's convertible, like 38 Chevy or whatever it was, that I think that's in number 2. That Marty's, like on his hoverboard.
On his grandfather. Oh, that one there. That was number 3 with the hoverboard, but number 2 was
the one that he runs in the back of the manure truck with that it's like a burgundy.
Yeah.
He's trying to, I think, get the betting book back or something.
Yeah.
But then, of course, his 85 Toyota Tacoma.
Yeah.
Seemed like there was a third car I'd thought of, but anyway, there's a lot of cool cars just that make an appearance anyway in the whole franchise.
Yeah, and that's what you look back at these movies when they were made, and even just the regular cars that just have to be, extras, so to speak, in the movie. You look back, you say, well, they were brand new then, right? But it's 1985, so the cars were pretty cool 80s cars. But yeah, even Mexican Spec says not Tacoma, it was just a pickup, and I believe they weren't calling them Tacomas back then.
Yeah.
But we get what you mean. Whalen Wire says Jason was born in 75. Man, I'm too old for this conversation. Ken, welcome to the show. Thanks for popping in. I see Martin's Garage. I appreciate you stopping in here. And we also got the Miniac, and I've seen a few other names pop in there real quick. Shop Cat's been here for a bit. Thanks for jumping in. We're getting close to an hour, and I think I want to take a moment, not so much to reflect on 2022, but to kind of foresee 2023 as far as straight SIXFAN, old car guy, and a little bit of the future of the Car Guy SIXFAN show and what might be expected in the future. Grant, I know we've both talked about some of the things that we're going to be doing, kind of moving forward. You're still working on the Pontiac, but kind of what's the big goal for you in the upcoming year with Lori G-Pre?
Sell it. That's the big goal.
Shut up, Ryan. We're not talking EVs tonight.
So yeah, Ryan. Well, in future changes to the Car Guy and SIXFAN show is Ryan's not allowed to ever bring up EVs again. That's a new rule we're instituting for 2023.
Banned for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the dream 2023 for me is, and I'll be honest, like the dash is ready to go back in, but it hasn't gone back in yet. Get that interior together, be done with that. I want to go out to Chad Ehrlich's yard. He's got 3 different Grand Prix of the same era out there that have better front bumpers and grills than mine does. Swap those out and put it up for sale as though it was a Survivor car, right? And see if I can flip it for some profit. And then the dream for 2023 is to build my first rat rod, build it around that 300 Ford Inline 6 that I yanked out of my high school truck last May. So that's the dream scenario for 2023. But, a lot of things got to happen and for that to take place. And I suppose also the dream would be that we finally buy a plot of land that we've been saving up for in 2023. But I don't know that would necessarily make the channel anyway. But how about you, Jason? What's the dream scenario for 2023 in your parts?
Well, ultimately, we want to get this Yugoda project going, and at least I want to. When I do the initial video of starting to actually work on it, I'm going to break it down into kind of a 3-part. So one, we want to get the motor swapped over, and whatever we're going to be using in the Yugo from the Toyota, get it running and driving. That's going to be phase 1. Phase 2 is going to be upgrades. So upgrades such as suspension and steering components. And then phase 3 is going to be turbo and that sort of thing. So again, we want to get this thing. I said at the very beginning, I want to triple the horsepower. So that doesn't take much in a 57 horsepower car. But ultimately, my goal is like 200 horsepower is what I'd like to see out of this little thing. And part of that is, I've said it before, is that I'm in talks with a sponsor, and I want to see that sponsorship be a part of this build to a different level, which potentially means wrapping the car with this sponsor to some degree. So there will be some sort of a livery on this to reflect that. We're hoping that we can make this work, and it will. If it works out, it will be funny as hell. So I hope you guys stick around for that. Phase 1, like I said, is get the car swapped, get it running and driving, and then we can move on from there. But for 2023, there's a couple of things that I have as a goal. Back before the pandemic, my goal for 2020 was to get down to Atlanta, that area with Robbie from United by Trucks. There's a couple of guys down there that do a lot of the truck shows, to meet up with Brian Harrison, who has he specializes in Chevy C10s and square bodies. I want to get into to visit him. I want to take Dale the truck down there. I want to drive all the way to Atlanta. And from what I'm understanding, early talks this year for 2023 for the Hot Rod Power Tour is an Atlanta South Carolina, Tennessee route. So if we can kind of plan a trip down there around that and Hot Rod Power Tour, that would be awesome. To do that with Dale the truck. So that's a couple of things. Las Vegas for SEMA again next year is on my radar, but I've really got to take a look and see what the financial aspects of a trip to Georgia and Power Tour and all that running around, and whether or not I feel confident enough to take Dale the truck on that kind of a drive. And try and take my whole garage of tools with me when I do it. So
Yeah, so I forgot all about the idea of travel in 2023, and so as you bring that up, Jason, like let's keep in touch, because as you know, part of our Canadian trip was to capture a few more state capitals. We still need Atlanta.
Yep.
So maybe we can fly down and meet you in Atlanta or something too, as part of that endeavor. But I'd love to go to Village Customs. Always does their thing, Bernie Fest. I'd love to do that in every year. Like, I just can't justify it because there's a certain travel expense and kind of already exhausted. But yeah, I'd love to do that in 2023. So maybe this is the year for that.
Yeah. So who knows what 2023 will bring? I'm pretty excited that we're still moving forward with things like the CARRGUY and SIXFAN show. I only wanted to touch on this briefly to tell you guys that the CARRGUY and SIXFAN show is making a few changes for next year. We haven't solidified exactly what that looks like yet, but we are making a few changes in frequency as well as duration. So we don't know exactly what that looks like just yet, but it will be around. We just don't know for sure what we're going to be doing with it. So we've been doing this for 4 years. This is our 4th Christmas show. I've had a blast. I'm just sorry I'm not wearing a Santa hat or shirt. It's bloody cold in here. I wish I had my Santa hat, but moving forward, we'll have some heat out here in the near future with my new little studio. Like I said, you guys can't see it, but if you don't follow me on Instagram, go over there, follow me. You'll see those pictures that I posted and I got some new lighting. I think that's pretty cool that I get some mood lighting that I can change color with. You probably saw me playing with it earlier. I think that's pretty neat.
Well, I think we should just end it there. Just call it a show. Call it and yeah, Jason mentioned we don't know exactly what changes are coming, but there will be changes to the CARRGUY and SIXFAN show. It will most likely still stay on Thursday nights, but as he mentioned, not sure what that frequency ends up being. But we think that we'll change it up enough that you guys will certainly want to still come back and hang out with us. So should, just because it's new and different doesn't mean it's worse, or I sure hope it's not worse. Should be better. So
yeah, we're always trying to think of different ways to entertain you guys, and this is one way that we're going to try to do that, and see if we can make things happen. Guys, thanks for sticking with us, for being a part of our little Christmas special. It's been fun. I think I saw the numbers up to about 24 there, maybe more at one point in time. So thanks for kind of joining in and taking some time to spend with us and let us tell our stories and how we reflect on 2022 and what we expect to see in 2023. I'm so happy to be a part of the CARRGUY and SIXFAN show, as well as the Get Out and Drive podcast, and to have you guys always hear a lot of the same regular faces every week. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope everybody stays safe. Hope you get to spend lots of time with your loved ones, and I hope that 2023 is a great year for all of you as well. And I will sign off. Grant, you can go ahead and close us out.
I will just finish with Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
And to all your Six fans out there,